TVC News.
Morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. You know, we've been hearing so very much, some of it, in fact, a lot of it surprising. I suppose one of the more surprising ones that we heard in the course of the week was does one call it a scoop? If it were newspaper and stories now, one would be talking of a scoop. But with the EFCC, what? The 753 duplex houses that have been discovered in Abuja. Is it really discovered? Since it's hard to hide 753 items, each of them the size of a house, because that's exactly what they are. 753 duplexes, we hear, have been confiscated by the EFCC. It is being referred to as the biggest catch. So that was my sort of trying to allude to the concept of a scoop. It's the biggest haul. Okay, our guest this morning, we have a couple of them actually. Let's start off with Mr. Lanre Suraj, anti-corruption crusader. He's also chairman of HEDA. I understand he's reaching us from Ghana, where he's over there monitoring the elections. Good morning to you, Lanre. Is that, was I accurate there? Are you in Ghana to monitor the elections? I believe, Larry, I'm so sorry. I believe your phone is accidentally on mute, so we couldn't hear anything you said. Your phone must...
Oh, sorry.
Okay, now it is unmuted. Yes.
I don't know how the system got into. Yeah, you're precisely correct. I'm in Ghana to monitor the presidential election tomorrow. Yes, that is where I'm speaking to you from.
Okay, well, long throat will sort of do one who is a current affairs addict. How is it going over there in Ghana as far as you have been able to see the arrangements up to now?
Yeah, I think the Ghanaian, the atmosphere you can still see is very peaceful and well coordinated in terms of the preparation and also some of the observation we've seen on ground. The electoral official is ready, the law enforcement agencies. It is not all usually what you would see in some of the countries, including even Nigeria sometimes, where you would have seen the build-up to like some kind of very heated environment that you can tell in some situations that you might have some kind of breakdown of law and all that. But that has not been the situation so far. And some of the election monitors have moved also outside of Accra to other places across Ghana to see the situation. So by tomorrow we would see what it would look like pre the election in the morning and then post the election afterwards by tomorrow evening and next tomorrow.
Indeed. Well, thank you very much for that snippet, as it were. You can be sure TVC is going to be on it. TVC is going to be on it, and so you get further details of that. Because Lanre Suraj is with us for another subject, and it's about the war against corruption in his beloved country, his and our beloved country. I introduced him as a, as a crusader against corruption. Now, what do you make of the the news that the 750 buildings, duplex houses that have now been reportedly, I think the owner or the, shall we be using the word alleged? The alleged owner has now been uncovered and it has been put out there. What's the information you have?
Yeah, I mean, so this is where the EFCC is making one of the biggest, cash and also result from
740 buildings.
That the Commission and other law enforcement and anti-corruption agencies should adopt the civil forfeiture mechanism for the confiscation and also forfeiture of proceeds of crime. It does not necessarily even have to be public office holder alone. It could also be private, persons who might sometimes be connected with public office holders. And some of them who are also working in private companies who are defrauding their employers. It is within the power of the law enforcement agencies, particularly now in the position of the EFCC, that they can use what it has in its Section 7 of the Enabling Act establishing the Commission to actually pursue some of these assets where they are identified as potential proceeds of crime, that they can then approach the court and get, the interim forfeiture order and ask the court to finally forfeit the assets to the government in a situation where the acclaimed legitimate owner is unable to come before the court to prove the genuine source of ownership of those proceeds of suspected proceeds of crime. So this was exactly what the EFCC did, and with the temporary forfeiture by the court of law in Nigeria, and they had that for whoever is the owner. In this situation, it does not mean that EFCC does not know who the owner or who is suspected to be the owner of the asset. Yes, so I must confess that. Yeah. But it is to be assumed, because you don't want to join the issue with the suspected or alleged owner pending when it is forfeited, and then you can go ahead to go and prosecute in the criminal aspect of the acquisition of the property. But in the civil aspect, you can go after the assets, and then within the shortest period of time, you can have the final forfeiture, just like you had in this case. So that is a closed case. Then you can now proceed with the criminal aspect. So this is one of the key achievements of fight against corruption, and then also prosecution of it in Nigeria.
Okay. Now, Larry, let me just say that we also have on the program this morning Alistair Wilcox. You probably know him. He's a long-time commentator on public policy, and he's also an analyst. I'm talking about Alistair Wilcox. Good morning, Alistair. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Yori. It's quite a while.
Indeed.
It's been a very, very long time.
Indeed.
Today happens to be my birthday. You have not wished me happy birthday.
There you go. I have the opportunity. A very happy birthday to you, Alistair. Thank you very much for making the time for us.
Suraj, nice seeing you again. After a long time, Suraj.
Yeah,
nice seeing you again.
Well, Alistair, happy birthday from me too. I mean, yes,
thank you very much. You are supervising. You are monitoring election in my second country, Ghana. I love that so much.
There you go.
That's lovely.
I'm delighted that you two can hear each other, because it's important. Now, Alistair, let me get your take on this war against corruption, and in particular, zeroing in on the 753 buildings that is being referred to as the biggest catch ever since the establishment of the EFCC. But what's your initial commentary? Because whereas I think we're thinking in terms of an alleged owner, but as Lanny was just explaining, there are processes. People might think they have a very, very good hold on who the likely owner is. But, Alistair, you are used to this, these kind of strictures of one has to be careful. What is your take on this whole matter, the ownership of the 753 duplex houses, and how elephants happens to be marauding all over the place, and not one person from law enforcement saw any elephants or anything unusual about having 753 elephants just arising out of some place.
Yeah. If you ask me now, who I go ask? But of course, the program has to go, because I think just like Suraj said, we must give the EFCC some pat on the back, some slack with respect to this. Even if everybody have a lot of reservation about how the EFCC has been conducting themselves, the truth of the matter is, if EFCC should really do their work, there will be more than 753 houses, duplex or estates in Abuja. Abuja is a beacon of corruption. I mean, let's face the fact. The houses, the estates in Abuja, I mean, they are all owned by either a politically exposed person, civil servants, and all whatnot. So it's not on. It didn't come to me as a surprise that happened, and I'm expecting that more, because if you go to Abuja, I mean, I know when I started going to Abuja, sometimes in 1999, thereabout, when I started going to Abuja, I know that from the airport to the main city, it's bush on both sides. But today, what do you have? All kinds of structure, yes, development, estates, all kinds of estates. Some people cannot even afford. People are buying as if tomorrow is not. I mean, wouldn't come. So there is so much massive corruption in Abuja. Abuja is not a industrial town, city. Abuja is a government city. It's a civil servant city, and yet, yes, it's the seat of government. So one expects that there will be a lot of money moving around. But when people acquire things like this and in such magnitude, they begin to ask themselves, how do the funds come about? So if the EFCC if they could boldly do their job without fear of favor, I think there are more and more estates, houses that needs to be recovered. Well, let's give a pat on the back. As per the ownership, Yori, yes, names have been flying. Well, like the names have been flying, and those names are not too far-fetched to the fact that these names have been having a lot of series of cases to answer. So it will not be out of place if those names are associated with it. But of course, it cannot be one man. One man cannot pull off such a transaction. So if the EFCC will do themselves a wall of good, because it is easy to unearth who are they. I mean, these things will not come. And they're not rocket science. Anybody building houses, anybody having estate, buying land, have BVNs, have everything, so you must know. But again, this is Nigeria, where a lot of things are kept under wrap. Like you said, a name withheld, and this withheld. But let's see as it goes. But of course, it's a good call for the EFCC. And the next question, I don't know if you ask me, is what will become of these buildings in the next 1 year, the next 2 years? How do we be sure that these buildings will really benefit, or the proceeds will come back fully to the coffers of the government and used to benefit the Nigerian people?
Okay, then. Let me take part of what you said to Larry. Just looking at those pictures, Larry, you see that this is not a building project that is in progress. It's been there for a while, maybe something in the region of 2 years. You look at the condition of the cement, and we all know what it looks like before you come to the real finishing. Even though this was on a great scale, you see the mold on the cement. That tells you that this goes back to the former EFCC, by which I mean before the leadership of the company of the bureau changed, and indeed before the administration changed. Weigh in, Larry. What I said I'd bring to you when Alester said, "Well, this is Nigeria." Well, we've always said that anything can happen in Nigeria. It's not far-fetched. You just need to look at the news, and you see all the things that not all of them are related to the public sector. There's a whole scandal going on, as you know. Okay, that's within the law, and there's no lawyer here. So let me just leave that one. There's a scandal going on, within the law and all of that. So, but as I said, it's possible for us to leave that one out because we're looking at public corruption. There is corruption, and then there is public sector corruption. When Alester said, well, this is Nigeria, it's a statement that all of us use far too often. Do you think the time is coming when we won't be able to justifiably use that expression? This is Nigeria, because that seems to indicate that it has always been like this. Nothing will change. It is Nigeria. We know our way.
Yeah, I mean, that's very, very much correct. And unfortunately, it's really sad that we have a golden opportunity that was actually missed due to the greed and also commitment from the side of some of those that were saddled with the responsibilities of administering the affairs of the whistleblower policy that was enacted by the previous government. That was a very good, veritable tool that was meant actually to assist the government in promoting whistleblowing on the part of the citizens, the broad citizens, even though there was the effort at guaranteeing some kind of, appreciation, which goes to the whistleblower if some of these illicit assets are identified and reported to the law enforcement agencies. And that was really yielding result. I can tell you, there's nothing that is hidden in Nigeria. It is just the circumstances that would either determine whether people would come forward with information or otherwise. It is not rocket science. I can assure you, the moment that EFCC or whoever gets to within that property, conducting some measure of surveillance or intelligence gathering, or even go to some beer parlors around that area, you would get to know from either the bricklayers, the architects, or the plumbers, indications about the ownership of those properties. And that is what we need around the country. And it's available all over there. And like I was saying, with the whistleblower policy, the policy of the previous regime, people were going forward to actually volunteer information until it became apparent that the Ministry of Justice in particular, that was coordinating the process of both collecting the information and at the same time rewarding the whistleblower, became enmeshed in the allegations of corruption itself. The information given by whistleblowers were traded with some other persons of interest with the administrators in the ministry. Some of the whistleblowers were not paid their promised reward, and at the same time, some of them were directed to lawyers who are close to the officers in the ministry to negotiate what will be the percentage, to the extent that some of them were even, offered ridiculous 40% or less of their promised reward. So we missed that opportunity of encouraging people to come forward. And you can remember this was how the former NNPC GMD was also discovered through the whistleblower. In fact, it was reported to be family members who actually reported, the stashing away of millions of dollars in a room somewhere in Kaduna by the former NNPC GMD. So these were opportunities, and this is the kind of thing that we're actually also talking about in this situation. So this would possibly change that narrative, that mentality that will say this is Nigeria, anything will go, and then you can get away with it. What you can see is obviously with the change of government, something actually changed. So possibly the source of the illicit fund also either stopped or got drained, and the construction could not easily just continue like you would have expected. But it is happening, and it must not stop. So we must continue to challenge the anti-corruption agencies in the country to deal with this, because we, like Alexis said, go to Abuja and you will see avalanche of all these kind of properties, massive buildings all across the places without even any trace asset. And there's also the need to start improving the standard of construction in this country, to the extent that the law provides that you must display as part of the information across the building who is building, what you are building, who is the owner, who are the beneficiaries. All this information should be displayed so that people can start seeing who is building what at any point in time.
Okay, Lanre, let me bring parts of this to Alester. Because what Larry has said, and indeed what you had also spoken of when we were speaking, is this whole corruption. So I wanted to ask you, Alester, how urgently do you think the ordinary Nigeria is ready to take on corruption, fight it, and battle it to an end? That is, leave EFCC now. The ordinary Nigerian, what is their attitude to corruption? Because I think this is, you've spoken about the Whistleblower Act, and we don't know anything about that anymore. It's gone quiet. Larry was professing some reasons. What's your attitude, Alester, about the attitude of the average Nigerian to corruption and cooperating against it?
Laurie, unfortunately, the average Nigerian do not is not interested in fighting corruption. That's the sad reality. The average Nigerian is interested in condemning if it doesn't favor you, that if it's not from your side, if it's not your person, that is corrupt, that so that it can drop to you, you condemn, just condemn, maybe social media hype. But if it favors you, if it's your brother, your family member, your tribesman, your religion, somebody from your religion, you defend. And then the next thing will be, it's not only him, or he didn't do anything wrong.
Or he took your money.
He has not done,
or who has said his money is missing.
Exactly.
Who has said his money is missing?
I remember years back, during when I can't remember his name now, was the GMD of NNPC during the Babangida time, and the man was fired, and that's when I knew that Niger Delta people rose up. The first time they rose up to say, "It's our money. It's after it's our song." That was years back, and that attitude has continued. You know, if it is your person, you defend. You have a interest, you defend. Albeit mundanely or just outrageously, just defend. But if it's not your person, you condemn. But the average Nigerian is, and again, like I said, most people are only interested in looking at politicians as the corrupt people. That's just the sad irony. Everybody thinks the corrupt people in Nigeria are the politicians. Now, if you report that a policeman is corrupt, they will defend it that after he's not well paid. If you report that a civil servant is corrupt, they say after all, how much is their salary? So we explain or defend certain elements, and then everybody is looking at the politician as the most corrupt people. But I said no. The politician will spend 4 years, maximum 8 years, but let's say for governor or for whoever, and he leaves. But the civil servants, which most people have tagged the evil servants or the bureaucrats, they are either there for 35 years or till maybe they get 60. Even sometimes they manipulate their ages and they get to 65, 70. So these time professors get to 70.
A form of corruption in itself.
For me, that is where the corruption is embedded. Because a Nigerian seems to enjoy when your brother goes out and comes back with loads of goodies. You are happy. You don't ask where it's coming from. You have somebody who works in the Ministry of Culture, just for example, or Ministry of Women Affairs, is building up a massive structure. You are praising him or her. Of course. You are happy.
Okay, tell you what, Alistair, I beg your pardon. I've got to take a quick break now. We'll be back in a jiffy. We'll continue this conversation and also include calls. Stay with us, please.